The following is intended for entertainment purposes only. The Polyverse does not condone bigotry of any kind. It's the 31st century. Mankind is once again at war. True born of the clans, the time approaches when we will realize the dream of Alexander Kernsky. The freeborn filth of the inner sphere will fall before our might. Battletech and its associated video game, MechWarrior, and book phenomenon was quite a phenomenon in the mid-80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and according to Wikipedia, Battletech is a wargaming and military science fiction franchise launched by FASA Corporation in 1984. Year I was born. No wonder I like it. Acquired by WizKids in 2001 and owned since 2003 by Topps, the series began with FASA's debut of the board game Battletech, originally named Battle Droids by Jordan Weissman and L. Ross Babcock III, and has since grown to include numerous expansions to the original game, several board games, role-playing games, video games, a collectible card game, and a tabletop series, and a book series of more than 100 novels, and even an animated television series. As I said, it all started with a tabletop game with hexagons in place of squares for a greater range of mobility, and then a board games like Succession Wars and the Flames of the Inner Sphere, then a customizable card game by the same people that brought us the quasi-popular Magic the Gathering. Then came the computer games that culminated in MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries. Now, there was a fifth game that was started but got lost in development hell like many a movie nowadays. And there were even a few books from the classic era, which most of us were familiar with, to the Dark Age storyline, which to some fans is not quite as good as the classic storyline. And again, there was even an animated series at one point, though it didn't catch on, probably due to the fact there was no outlets for it, like say YouTube or Netflix or Amazon Movies, just to name a few. Now, Battletech's fictional history covers approximately 1,150 years from the end of the 20th century to the middle of the 32nd. Most of the works in these series is set during the early to middle decades of the 31st century, though a few publications concern earlier ages. MechWarrior Dark Ages and its related novels take place in the mid-3100s. With numerous separate political entities, including the Inner Sphere, the Periphery, and even the clans, and a few mercs, there is more than enough intrigue for at least 5 seasons of mech-based combat and maneuvers of political mayhem. In this series, we have giant robot battles, faster-than-light travel capabilities, and communications. There's political intrigue, war, etc. It is an exciting story that would do wonders for small and large screen alike, and even short 5 to 15-minute webisodes if we so choose. And this is how we would go about doing it. Now, we would start with the second blood right of Aiden Pride, a character from the clans. This is an intriguing point, as within the clans, you're only allowed one blood right. Aiden Pride was able to get his second blood right by posing as a freeborn, which amongst the clans was an epitaph. After this amazing rise to power, he and his team were tainted by the fact he posed, even for that short time, as a freeborn. For perspective, a trueborn of the clans is someone who was born from genetic engineering, who had genetic donations from mothers and fathers, and then combined and randomized and birthed from artificial wombs in a large group called Sibco. These Sibcos would then grow up together, learn to fight as different types of warriors, such as mech warriors piloting the mechs, or elementals, big hulking people that fought in smaller powered armor, and even pilots and communications specialists. The scientists and mechanics were usually freeborn. Genetic manipulation was needed due to the fact that they had to flee the Inner Sphere at the end of a bloody war that eventually resulted in the clans through the first and second Exodus. Again, there is a lot of story to go along with this franchise. At the conclusion of the second Blood Rite of Aiden Pride, we would then have the initial return to the Inner Sphere, and we would see the blitzkrieg of the clans as they steamrolled over the unprepared armies of the Inner Sphere. This would continue for the next 2 or 3 seasons until the intervention of Comstar, which is the group that controls communications within the Inner Sphere. They have the hyperpulse generators, which allow for the faster-than-light communication. Without Comstar, there would be no Inner Sphere, for multiple reasons. And this group of quasi-religious monks tipped the battle in favor of the Inner Sphere over the clans simply by not providing real-time communication and by turning their own mechs, who were supposed to be just for defense of the hyperpulse generators, against the clan Juggernaut. And while we are battling in the present, we would even be able to have flashbacks and even entire episodes in the past to learn the history and politics of the clans and Inner Sphere. We would pace it to follow the classic era for as many seasons as possible and have a climax perhaps at the defeat of the clans. And if this series is successful, we would roll right into the Dark Ages. Due to the amazing amount of history and the fact that they are giant robots, there is a lot of preliminary work that would have to be done before the series could even get off the ground. But I think it would be worth it, especially in modern times where we have animes and movies about giant robot battles. Thank you for watching. If you have more ideas for series or game concepts, comment below, or just like, comment, and subscribe. We can't improve without feedback. And remember, don't party too hard.